Hey, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to another fantastic episode. Well, I don't want to say fantastic because I'm going to preempt that, but another episode of, I think we're going to call it Conversations with Khan, because that's currently sticking, and Machebe likes that. And continuing on that framework with communication specialists and experts, I'm really glad today to have two wonderful colleagues with me, all the way from Secunda. So I've got my colleague Nomia on my left, and then to my further left, I've got my colleague Doctor. And today we're going to unpack two different topics. We're going to first talk about hashtag my favorite Sassel value. We're on, I think, value number 21 or 22 right now. So that's doing really well. And remember, we're trying to hit 75 colleagues. Well, not hit 75 colleagues, but we're going to try and target 75 colleagues to speak about their favorite values before September. So for those who are watching this, if you haven't had an opportunity to share your hashtag my favorite Sassel value, please grab me, contact me, send me a Teams message. I want to feature as many colleagues as possible from as many geographies as possible and many different areas of the business. So let us know. So we're going to start off with hashtag my favorite Sassel value. But as an added bonus to those watching the video, colleagues, I also want you to share either a quote or something that a leader has shared with you, something that you've read that inspires you. Now, again, I don't want to put pressure on each other and say, tell me like the most important quote in your life, because then we have to think about what's profound. I just want you to share a quote that you reflect on and something that you think about. But we're going to start with values and we'll jump from there. So let's start with Nomia. Nomia, I'm going to hand over the mic. If you can start with, what's your favorite Sassel value and why?
Thank you, MJ. My favorite Sassel value is be resilient. And that resonates with me personally because to be resilient means that you have the capacity to withstand or to overcome difficulties. And I think that speaks to me as a person and as an employee at Sassel. So I do bring that to work. When we go through change, we are going through change now at Sassel, and when I tap into that, I find that I'm better able to deal with change. So I always remind myself that difficulties are a part of life, and I always remind myself that I can overcome them. And whilst I'm vulnerable and I am in the change or the difficulty, once I remind myself that I have the capacity to overcome, I find that I deal with it much better. So that is my Sassel value. Thank you.
I love that resilience is there for you. And I think it's so important as well, especially if you look at our ability to adapt. I think that's something that is so important for us as in the communication space, in the change space. So if I can ask you to unpack a little bit about what does resilience mean when it comes to communication? What does resilience mean in a world where there's so many things out of our control? Whether it's macroeconomics, whether it's policies, whether it's load shedding. So many things are out of our control. How do we, as communication professionals, adapt to that, and how do we weave that resilience into our output?
Number one is to adapt and deal with it and understand that times do change, so to move with the times. The second one for me is about being able to have a balance. And I'll give you an example. Social media, for instance, it is there 24/7. Now, being resilient for me and adapting to it means that I know when to switch on and when to switch off. So knowing, for instance, that I have to switch off my phone when I go to sleep, I have to switch off my phone when I'm having a personal conversation with a person, I have to switch off my phone when I am in a meeting. That tells me that I am being resilient because I'm not allowing the tool or the communication aspect to overwhelm me. So I have the capacity to actually deal with it and to handle it and to manage it. And it speaks to a lot of communication channels. It's about initially allowing yourself that you do not know how to use it, but once you get to know how to use the tool, don't let it use you. Don't let it control you.
And know when to step back.
And know when to step back. Know when to make it valuable for you. And to know where to draw the line. When it becomes too much, you need to know. So I know that some of our colleagues, human beings, have you heard about what's happening in China? In schools and at home, children switch off the phones when they get home after 8 o'clock. They literally switch off their phones. There's time to have a meal. There's time to have a conversation at home. That for me is being resilient, you see. And I like the fact that as a country, they've come up with a mechanism of being resilient and not be overwhelmed by a communication tool.
Oh, that's powerful.
Thank you.
So, Doctor, we've got be resilient. Tell us a little bit about which value is either your favorite value, or it might not necessarily be your favorite value, but it's a value that you're working on at the moment. So before this conversation, I shared that I'm very interested, or not, I'm very invested rather in the value of being inclusive, and I challenge myself. How do I be more inclusive? As a communicator. So I'd love to hear what's your favorite value and why, or which value is something that you think about, you reflect on, and then you're working on. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, MJ. So I'm going to be honest.
Always.
The value that basically now, sticks with me the most is be safe. I think safety for me has become priority since I joined Cecil. I'll be honest that before I joined Cecil, I think, I didn't really care about, safety, to be honest. For me, safety, what on earth is safety?
I can relate to that.
And the funny thing is, I didn't realize that safety is really top priority until I went to the mall and I saw a zebra crossing, which people don't really, pay attention to that. But now for me, because I work at Cecil and I know that zebra crossing is basically there for a reason, I started realizing, hey man, Cecil's actually having, this good influence in my life that I didn't actually, know of. Back then, I'd see a zebra crossing and just cross wherever I want to cross and be like, the car can see that I'm actually coming through. So if it doesn't stop, chances are we'll go to court, I'll get ref money. But now, I think be safe is that value that actually sticks out for me, and it means a lot.
How does the safety value play a role outside of work? So for me, again, I wasn't as safety conscious before joining Cecil, and now safety is so top of mind that if you ask my 6-year-old, he'll tell you the safe way is the only way. And it affects the way we descend stairs, for example. Like, I never practiced 3-point contact before Cecil, and now it's a rule in the house. So can you share some of the ways that your safe behaviors manifested themselves outside of the workplace?
So, funny enough, we write down these, as a comm specialist, obviously, we write down all these, safety measures that, are in place and all of that. And when you get home, you always remember them. And as a father, now that I've got a son, I always practice safety, I think, with my son. I always check, on whether, he's doing the right thing, he's not playing with knives and whatnot. And back then, I think I didn't really care about, a lot of stuff. But now I've realized that even with small things as 3-point contact, where, you'll see that, when you're walking down the stairs, knowing that you need to obviously, have that balance. Don't just run down the stairs as we used to back in the days. So I think, safety for me is...
You know what I've stopped doing? I've stopped texting and walking,
Oh,
even at the mall.
No.
Or when my phone rings, I'm at the mall. You should see how I become so uncomfortable to pick it up. Or if I do take that call, then I stop. I literally stop. And when I see other people do it, I forget that they don't work for Cecil.
It's hard to know
how can they do that? Then I quickly remember, it's a public place.
And I think for some of us as well, there's a truth in that, where we sometimes might want to convince ourselves that we can text and drive and stuff. But these distractions are what cause to unintended consequences. So I'm so glad that safety is top of mind for you. And I think with that, let's pivot to the next section or the next area rather what we're going to talk about. So I want to challenge you colleagues to share one quote or something that was shared with you or something that you've read that you think about, that you reflect on. And again, we don't want to be all-encompassing, so it doesn't have to define your life, but it's just something that you can share with those who are watching this. They're going to be watching it on YouTube, on LinkedIn. We want to share and celebrate all the colleagues. So I think I'll start with one, and that is something that my mom tells me all the time. And she told me this from the time I was young. And, you know, I think sometimes when you're young and your parents tell you things, it doesn't have that same sort of weight to it. And then when you get older, you start reflecting on the wisdom more and you appreciate it. And something my mom used to tell me all the time is that half a loaf is better than no loaf. And I think about that so often, and how often, and I mean, even when we're doing these videos and things like that, you know, sometimes we want that perfection. We want that great lighting. We want to rehearse. We want to make sure that we don't stumble or anything like that there. And what ends up happening is we end up doing nothing.
Yeah.
We think about it, we overthink about it, but we don't actually do anything. So the advice I want to give to those watching today is half a loaf is better than no loaf. And be appreciative and grateful for what you have. Take those little jumps. Maximize what you have. Don't wait till you have the best of everything before you can do something. Start, especially the content creators out there. Start creating with what you have. Put something out there for people to consume. Action is worth so much more than just strategy and overthinking. So that's what my mom shared with me. Nomia, tell us something that you've read or something that you want to share with everyone online.
So a quote that inspires me and that I've learned a lot from is by Sir Isaac Newton, which says, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on shoulders of giants." Over my career, I think I have surrounded myself with people who help me move forward. We think key stakeholder management is about big government stakeholders. It's also about the relationships that you build as an individual. So what I would advise is if you want to get to the next stage of your career, get people to help you. Don't look at yourself and don't be an island and don't beat yourself up because you're not achieving something. Identify people who can help you move forward.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Powerful.
That's fantastic. Talk to yourself. I'm loving this video. Thanks so much. Thanks so much again, just for sitting with me for a few minutes, chatting and recording this. I think it's really important.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So, I think obviously my favorite quote is from Mahatma Gandhi, which says, "Be the change you want to see." And for me, that speaks, volumes, especially looking at the world that we live in now, and I reflect on things that are happening, maybe in terms of, even outside of work, there's things like gender-based violence that are basically, basically crippling our nation. And I think as a father and as a man, I basically take a stand and I want to be that example to other men that, look at Doc, is basically walking that path. He's taking care of his family.
And Doc hasn't figured it out.
Doc hasn't figured it out as he goes. Yeah. But I'm trying to be that, good example that, you know what, men, as a man, you shouldn't lay your hands on other women, Respect people as you want, them to respect you. I think that's how I basically, face life. And on a daily basis, I strive to basically, be the change that I want to see. I sometimes share with Nomia, my aspirations of doing a master's degree, not because it's just a master's degree, but because I want my son someday to, be proud of me and look at me and be like, yeah, that's my dad, That's where I am.
And I must say, just so I interact with both of you often online, not often in person, which is it's just sad for me. I don't get to just spend more time with both of you physically, but we make the most of what we make. And Doc, the one thing I can share about you with no hesitation whatsoever is that I would always say that you are always the positive change. Because I think when we talk about change, change could go one of two ways, right? You can either go positive or negative. And you've always, all my interactions with you have always been positive, and I appreciate you for that.
Thanks.
So thanks for that. And Nomia, I believe we're going to be working closer these days as on a lot more projects. So I'm really excited about that. I'm blessed to have both of you as colleagues. I'm blessed to have both of you as communication professionals that I can learn from. The company is blessed as well to have you, and just so excited to see more of the great work we can do together. And for those of you who were with us until this point, yes, this was a slightly longer video, but we appreciate that you've joined us for this journey. For the Sasol colleagues online, we want to be more inclusive. We want to include as many people as possible. Share your stories. It doesn't matter where you are, what you do in the organization. If you work for Sasol, you're remarkable, you're important, you're fantastic, and we want to celebrate you. So get in touch with me. Let's have more of these. And if you did enjoy this, please, I'm going to tag the colleagues on the line. Connect with them, follow them. They have so much great knowledge to share. So for those still here, thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you to my guests. Wa alaikum assalam.